Well, it looks like big tech is put on notice or has been put on notice by the Department of Justice as they are now considering actually breaking up Google. Um, I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer or busy, an expert on, I think the last time something like this was done was like the telephone companies was at the 70s. But Google does have a virtual monopoly on search. They have systems set up in place, in my opinion, that makes it almost impossible for new competitors to compete with search because they also control the mobile market with Samsung, by the way. With the Android phone, they control 60% of all cell phones, 80 to 90% of all searches. They also control the Google Play Store, which controls alternative options. It controls whether or not they're allowed on the market. So stuff like, for example, Gab or even Parler or many of these other apps throughout the years, Google just bans them off the Google Play Store, and suddenly you don't have access to 70% of your viewership. Something like 75% of my viewers, are watching on mobile devices. And the monopoly is real. And while Rumble continues to get better and better, it's still, the overwhelming percentage of viewers are still coming from YouTube. Now, I hope that, by the end of 2025, it's closer to, 70-30 would be a massive win. 65-35 would be a dream come true. Obviously, not everyone's going to just leave YouTube. That's just not going to happen. But if the government breaks it up, in particular, certain aspects of its search market, it could have a ripple effect that would be great for, big tech. You can see terrible for big tech, great for new tech. Chris Pavlovsky wrote, "This is massive news, massive." Unusual Wales tweeted, U.S. Justice Department just told federal judge that the judge is considering recommending that Google be forced to sell off parts of its operations. Now, what are those parts? I don't know. Does the stock market believe? Let's see. Well, it looks like this was announced. Google pretty much fell off a cliff last night. Since it's been announced, it's down. I guess it's not crazy, but it did plummet down. Let's see if this has been positive for Rumble stock. Nope. Man, I just keep buying more and more Rumble stock because it's always on sale. It's always in that $5 range. It feels like, to me, every month when I get my paycheck, I put like $1,000 into Rumble, and hopefully one day, I'll look back at all the shares I bought at $5 and be laughing. If they were at $20, that'd be incredible. The U.S. Department of Justice is considering asking a federal judge to force Google to sell parts of its business in order to eliminate its online search monopoly. This would be a massive net positive in the free speech world. I am not a corporate business expert, but as a fan of free speech, weakening anybody who has the level of control over free speech that Google does through YouTube and other applications, this would be huge. In a court filing late Tuesday, federal prosecutors also said the judge could ask the court to open to competitors the underlying data that Google uses to power its ubiquitous search engine and AI products. See, I care less about, I don't think they should do that. It's Google's product. If Google's product is the best, then it should have every bit of market share that it does, as someone who is a fan of capitalism. What I want is controls to where they're actively preventing competitors from entering the market. That's all I'm worried about. Because I don't think Google search is very good anymore. There are other options out there that people are slowly moving to, whether it's Brave Search or Yandex or whatever the case is. But there's other options out there. I'm just concerned with making sure Google is not, interfering in, putting their finger on the scales in elections, boosting, deboosting based on political stuff. That's what I'm interested in. If they have the best search engine, then I don't care if they have 100% of the market, as long as they're not using it in a negative manner, which in my opinion, they are. For more than a decade, Google has controlled the most popular distribution channels, leaving rivals with little to no incentive to bother competing for users. The antitrust enforcers wrote in a filing, full remedying of these harms requires not only ending Google's control of distribution today, but ensuring Google cannot control the distribution of tomorrow. To that end, the department said it is considering asking for structural changes to stop Google from leveraging products such as Chrome browser, Android operating system, AI products, or App Store to benefit in its search business. See, now that's where I'm into it. The fact that everything's so inexplicably tied together, as long as they're, allowing a better product to compete fairly, then I'm okay with them being where they are. But it's just that that's not what they do. There's a reason there hasn't been a single video on demand website that's ever competed with YouTube. Rumble is doing the best it can to kind of stay in the market. But, I'm curious how Rumble's going to be post-election. Rumble's probably going to be at an all-time high over the next 35 days. But how will it be after the election? I'll see, right? Many people, for example, follow me there. Many of you are watching me there. It's not uncommon for me to get 20 or 30,000 views on a Rumble video, and on YouTube have video that gets like 80 to 100,000. So it's definitely closing the gap. But we're in an election year, so it's going to be interesting to see how plugged in people are to Rumble. That's why I think they're trying to diversify their content so much. Leanne Mulholland, Google's Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, said in response to the filing that the Department of Justice was already signaling requests to go far beyond the specific legal issues. In this case, government overreach in a fast-moving industry may have negative unintended consequences for the American innovation and America's consumers. I don't think so. I think Google having less of a monopoly is basically a net positive. YouTube having less of a monopoly is basically a net positive. Even if sites like Rumble and BitChute and Odyssey and all these other sites, if they have a slightly inferior search algorithm or a slightly inferior interface, I think most people will be fine using that or accepting that as long as they can actually see the apps, as long as they're not buried in the App Store, as long as they're not. For how long? I don't even know if you still can, but you couldn't even link out to like BitChute videos from X, for crying out loud. That kind of stuff I don't like. They don't show up in Google search engine. I don't know how often Google serves up Rumble videos. My guess is they're incentivized to bury them way below YouTube videos. It's stuff like that. I just want a fair fight. Because I think people will go where the content is. People are happy to watch the content the way it is. And they'll even deal with a platform that isn't perfect. But what I believe is Google and through Android and their Play Store, they suppress alternatives. The government seems to be pursuing a sweeping agenda that will impact numerous industries and products with significant unintended consequences for consumers, businesses, and American competitiveness. They listed none of those potential downfalls. Google has already said it plans to appeal Meta's ruling, but the tech giant must wait until he finalizes a remedy. Before doing so, the appeals process could take as long as 5 years, predict George. So another election cycle. They're going to fight this with every tooth and nail. DOJ is considering asking a judge to break up Google. Prosecutors propose remedies after the Google antitrust violation ruling by a federal judge. I think obviously they do, they are a monopoly. And I do think that monopoly is a detriment to the American people. I think that you also have to tread lightly. Just because they have the best product doesn't mean that they should have to shut their company down. You know what I mean? But it's the active suppression of competitors. That's where that's where I'm mostly interested. Months after a federal judge ruled that Google violated antitrust law with its search engine, prosecutors have recommended remedies that a judge could order the tech company to implement. If enacted, the behavioral and structural remedies prosecutors are seeking could force a major reorganization or even a breakup of some of Google's basic businesses, including its search engine, which became popular, so popular that it became a verb. We're also talking about YouTube, right? I think the number one search engine is Google, then the number two is YouTube, and then number three is like Amazon. I'm pretty sure. So that was like the old rate. I'm not 100% sure, but pretty sure. Prosecutors said they are considering a requirement that Google share the data that powers a big chunk of its business, the inputs and models for Google search and search results, through an application programming interface. It's unclear how that API would work, including if Google could charge for it or open it to the public, a possible fix that investors floated in recent months. Hey, I would be fine with that too. One of the biggest complaints, for example, about Rumble is usually it's people that haven't used the app in 6 months that are complaining about it, because most of the complaints I see are stuff that have been fixed for a long time. But one very, very real complaint, not just creators and users have, is the search algorithm on Rumble, which is getting better, but it's nowhere near as good as YouTube's. It just isn't. And that needs to get fixed for a lot of reasons. Because one of the big reasons new creators leave the platform is they feel like they aren't getting discovered. You know, it's easy for me, who has a few months left on a Rumble deal, who, you know, they'll occasionally put me on the homepage and who has a big audience already. It's much easier for me to keep that audience or grow an audience on Rumble than it is a brand new creator. Discoverability is obviously very important. Now, I don't think the YouTube algorithm does diddly squat for discoverability either. But they say U.S. plan to break up Google search dominance threatens profit engine and AI growth. I don't think I care about AI getting slowed down. I don't think I care. I don't think I care that much. Now, Google is down 2% today and falling, but it seems like, I don't, by the time this video comes out, maybe it'll rebound, but that's 2%. That's not nothing. That's tens of millions of dollars. And it could continue to fall even more. It's really going to come down to whether or not people feel like this is actually going to happen. I don't care about Google's stock price. I don't care about that crap. I care about letting new tech compete in a fair marketplace, which would probably also include Apple iTunes Store. You know, Google and Apple can kind of have these rules in place, these terms of service in their place that are kind of fundamentally written to suppress free speech, to kind of act as a guardrail, to allow apps from even getting on their platforms. Tearing down those barriers, I think, are a great first step. Forcing them to share the algorithm, that makes me feel less comfortable because it's like, well, they developed it, so why should they have to tell other companies about it? Just don't actively suppress competitors. You know, maybe if the government wants to make sure that they're acting as a platform, not a publisher, that would be great too. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. You think they're actually going to pull this off? I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it, and we'll talk to you again real soon.